It was the coldest winter the little mountain town had seen in decades. The roads were buried under thick snow, trees sagged under frozen branches, and silence wrapped the valley like a heavy blanket. But one sound broke through that silence, a cry. Not the cry of a person, not the cry of a wolf echoing in the forest. It was something different, something haunting. At first, a passing truck driver thought it was the wind whistling through the canyon, but when he stopped his engine for a moment, the sound came clearer. A desperate howl rising and breaking, as if pleading for someone to listen. It was coming from the forest edge. The man knew wild animals often roamed there, but this didn't sound wild. It sounded broken, sad, human, almost. He leaned out of his truck and squinted into the white blur of falling snow. And then, he saw movement, a large, shaggy figure trudging through the drifts, a German shepherd. Its fur was wet and clumped with ice, and its ribs showed sharply through its coat. Yet its eyes, those deep, amber eyes, were fixed on the road, as if begging for help. The man's heart skipped. He pulled his scarf tighter and whispered, "Poor thing, and how long have you been out here?" But as he watched, something strange happened. The shepherd didn't run toward him, didn't wag its tail, didn't bark. Instead, it let out one last desperate howl, then turned sharply back into the forest, looking over its shoulder, as if wanting the man to follow. And here's where the story begins, because what lay hidden under that mound of snow, what that shepherd was guarding with its very life, would leave everyone who saw it shattered in tears. If you think this is just about rescuing a stray dog, you're wrong. What rescuers found buried beneath the snow was something no one could have imagined. The driver, shaken and unsure, called the local animal rescue team. Within an hour, headlights cut through the swirling snow as two jeeps arrived, sliding to a halt at the roadside. "Where is it?" asked Clara, the lead rescuer, pulling her hood tight against the freezing wind. The trucker pointed. "It went that way, looked like it wanted me to follow." Clara frowned. She'd seen dogs act strangely before, but there was a look in that shepherd's eyes that she couldn't shake. Not fear, not aggression, something else, something closer to desperation. The team set out, boots crunching in the snow, flashlights bouncing across the darkness. And just when they thought they'd lost the trail, there it was, the shepherd again. It stood just beyond the trees, snow dusting its back, eyes glowing faintly in the beam of the flashlight. It didn't growl, it didn't run, it simply turned, took a few steps, then looked back. "Follow me," its gaze seemed to say. And though none of them understood why, every single rescuer obeyed. That night would change all of their lives forever. The deeper they followed the German shepherd, the harsher the storm became. Snow whipped against their faces, the wind screamed through the trees, and their boots sank deeper into drifts that reached their knees. But the dog never faltered. Step by step, it led them down into a hollow where the wind was quieter, the snow a little thinner. The rescuers' flashlights cut through the night, bouncing off something unusual, a mound, not a natural one. "Wait," Clara whispered, holding up a hand. Her breath came out in clouds. "Look!" The dog circled the mound, whining and pawing at the snow. Its claws scraped against something beneath, something solid. Then, with a low whimper, it pressed its body against the snow-covered shape, as if begging them to understand. The rescuers moved closer, hearts pounding. One man knelt down and began brushing snow aside with his gloves. At first, all they saw was more white, more ice. But then, fabric. A dull gray cloth, stiff with frost. "Clara," the man said, his voice trembling. "There's something." Here, the team dropped to their knees, digging faster now, their gloves tearing at the frozen crust. The shepherd barked urgently, its eyes darting from their hands to the mound as if urging them to hurry, and then a tiny hand appeared. Clara froze. "Oh my God!" The rescuers clawed faster, revealing more of the shape buried beneath the snow. A small face, pale lips, closed eyes. A baby. Silence fell. The world seemed to stop. The German shepherd immediately curled itself around the child, pressing its body close as if to shield the baby from the rescuers. It let out a low growl, not of anger but of warning. "Be careful." This is mine to protect. Clara's voice shook. The dog, it's been keeping the baby alive. The child's skin was cold, frighteningly cold. But when Clara placed two trembling fingers against the tiny chest, a heartbeat, weak, faint, but there. The rescuers gasped. The impossible had happened. For 2 days, the storm had trapped the valley, cutting off power and burying houses. No one should have survived out here, and yet somehow this infant had, because a starving, freezing German shepherd had chosen not to save itself, but to save a life far more fragile. But here's the part that will leave you speechless. No one knew where the baby had come from. There were no houses nearby, no footprints leading to the mound, just this loyal dog, guarding it with its very life. The rescuers wrapped the baby in their coats, one of them whispering, "You're safe now, little one, you're safe." But as they turned to leave, the shepherd barked sharply, staying behind, pawing at the snow again. "Wait," Clara said softly, her blood running cold. There's more here. The mound wasn't just a hiding place, it was a grave. And what lay beneath it would unravel a mystery darker than anyone could have imagined. Snowflakes drifted heavily in the night, but for Clara and her team, time seemed frozen. They had the baby wrapped safely in coats, its tiny chest still, rising and falling with fragile breaths. Relief had swept through them, but only for a moment, because the German shepherd wasn't done. The dog barked again, pawing frantically at the snow beside the spot where the baby had been found. Its movements weren't random, they were urgent, insistent. Every whine carried meaning. "Look deeper. You're not finished yet." Clara's gut tightened. She crouched beside the shepherd, running a gloved hand over its matted fur. "What are you trying to tell us, girl?" The dog pressed its nose against the ground, then looked up with pleading eyes. One of the rescuers shook his head. "Clara, we've got a baby alive here. We can't waste time." But Clara cut him off sharply. "If this dog kept a baby alive in this storm, then we owe it to her to listen. Dig." The team hesitated, but the authority in her voice left no room for argument. Once more, their hands tore at the snow, shovels scraping, gloves freezing, hearts racing. Minutes passed. Nothing. But more ice. The storm howled around them, threatening to swallow their hope. And then, a dull thunk. One rescuer's shovel struck something solid. Wood. They exchanged stunned looks before clearing faster, revealing a half-buried crate. Old, weathered. The kind farmers sometimes used for storage. But why would it be here, hidden beneath snow? The shepherd whined, pacing back and forth, nudging the box with her muzzle. Clara's heart pounded as she brushed the last of the snow away. With trembling hands, she pried open the frozen lid. Inside lay blankets, torn, damp, and stiff with ice, but within those blankets, a small body. Everyone froze. For a heartbeat, they couldn't breathe. Then Clara's voice cracked the silence. "It's another baby. This one wasn't moving. Its skin pale, lips blue. No heartbeat." The shepherd whimpered softly, curling itself against the crate as if mourning. Tears stung Clara's eyes. She had been in rescue work for over a decade, had seen tragedy more times than she could count, but nothing could prepare her for the sight of one life barely clinging to survival, and another already lost. At this moment, every rescuer knew. This wasn't just about saving a stray dog. This was about unraveling a story of survival, sacrifice, and unbearable heartbreak. Who would abandon them here? One rescuer whispered. Clara's mind swirled. No houses nearby, no signs of travel, no footprints. Whoever left these babies here wanted them hidden, meant for them never to be found. And yet the shepherd had found them, protected them, chosen to keep one alive at the cost of her own strength. But why? As they stood in the snow, shaken and grieving, the dog let out one more sharp bark, her tail rigid, eyes fixed toward the forest's darkness. She wasn't done leading them. Clara lifted her gaze, her voice firm despite the ache in her chest. "We follow her. She knows more." The team hesitated. The storm was worsening, their hands numb, their faces raw from the wind. But something about the shepherd's determination made resistance impossible. With the living baby secure in their arms, they prepared to move again, deeper into the night, toward whatever secret the loyal dog was still guarding, and none of them could imagine how much darker this story was about to become. The forest grew denser as they followed the German shepherd. The storm muffled every sound except the crunch of boots in snow and the dog's steady bark echoing ahead. The rescuers' flashlights cut swaths of light through the branches, but the darkness seemed endless, pressing in from all sides. Every few steps, Clara glanced down at the baby in her arms. Its breaths were shallow, but present. Alive. She whispered, softly, as if her voice alone could keep it tethered to the world. "Stay with us, little one, stay with us." The shepherd glanced back often, making sure they followed. She wasn't just leading blindly. She was guiding with purpose, every step precise. "Clara," one rescuer muttered, struggling against the wind. "We've gone far enough. We should head back before we lose our way." But before Clara could answer, the shepherd stopped suddenly. Its ears perked, body stiff. It let out a low growl. The team froze, scanning the darkness. Then their beams of light fell upon it. Footprints. Not animal tracks. Human, partially covered by snow but still fresh enough to see, leading away from the hollow, away from the crate. Clara's breath caught. Someone had been here recently. "Whoever left those babies, they're not far," she whispered. The team's unease thickened. The idea that a person had abandoned infants in the middle of a storm was horrifying enough, but the thought that they might still be nearby, watching, sent chills deeper than the cold ever could. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was becoming something far more dangerous. The shepherd barked again, following the tracks. Clara nodded. "Stay sharp, keep the baby close. We're finding out who did this." Step by step they traced the footprints, winding through the frozen forest. The tracks were uneven, hurried, as if the person had been running. Then suddenly, they split. One set veered left, deeper into the woods. The other set circled back. Toward the road, the rescuers exchanged worried looks. "Two people," one asked. "Or one who doubled back," Clara muttered. Before they could decide which path to follow, the shepherd made the choice for them. She bolted down the left trail, barking fiercely. Her urgency left no room for hesitation. The rescuers chased after her, hearts pounding, snow crunching under their boots. The trees grew thicker, the shadows darker. And then, just ahead, something caught the light. A shape, half buried in snow, slumped against a tree. They approached cautiously, every muscle tense. As Clara lifted her flashlight higher, the beam revealed the figure clearly. A woman. Her clothes were ragged, her face pale, her lips trembling from cold. She was alive, barely. The shepherd reached her first, whining, nudging the woman's arm. The rescuers surrounded her, confusion and dread mixing in their eyes. "Is she—" One whispered. Clara knelt, checking for a pulse. Weak, but there. She looked up, her voice hushed but urgent. "She's still alive?" But the most shocking detail wasn't that she was alive, it was what lay in her arms. A bundle. Another baby. Alive. Crying weakly against the storm. And in that moment, every rescuer realized this story was only just beginning. The rescuers stood frozen in silence, their breaths puffing out in quick bursts of white mist. Clara's flashlight beam trembled as it fell over the woman. She was gaunt, her skin pale from the cold, lips cracked, eyes closed. But the faint sound of a baby's whimpering broke the silence. The bundle in her arms moved. Another baby. Alive. For a moment no one could speak. The storm howled through the trees, whipping snow around them like a curtain of ghosts. The German shepherd whimpered, circling the woman protectively, its eyes glowing in the dim light. Clara snapped out of her trance. "We need to move, now!" One rescuer bent low, checking the woman's pulse. Weak, thready. She wouldn't last long out here. "She's freezing to death," he muttered. "Hypothermia." "Wrap her," Clara ordered. "Get her and the baby insulated," We have to carry them back." But as they worked, one rescuer noticed something chilling. "Clara, look." The woman's arms were rigid, frozen in a desperate clutch around the child. Even unconscious, she hadn't let go. "Dear God," Clara whispered. What kind of story could explain this? A starving German shepherd guarding one baby. A dead infant buried in a crate, and now this, a mother, nearly frozen to death, still holding her child with every ounce of strength left in her. The shepherd barked sharply, startling them all. She stood between the rescuers and the woman, her hackles raised, but her bark wasn't hostile. It was warning. "Easy, girl," Clara said softly, reaching out. The shepherd's eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, Clara understood. The dog wasn't protecting just the baby. She was protecting the woman too. The rescuers lifted the woman carefully, prying her stiff fingers loose just enough to cradle the baby separately. The child's cry pierced through the storm, weak but alive. Clara pressed her hand against its tiny chest. 2 heartbeats, 2 miracles. But as they prepared to head back, a strange sound drifted through the forest. A crunch, snow shifting. Under footsteps, the team froze. "Did you hear that?" one whispered. They swung their flashlights toward the trees. Nothing. Only shadows swaying in the storm. But Clara felt it in her bones. Someone was out there, watching. Her voice was low, firm. "We move fast, no looking back." The rescuers formed a tight circle, carrying the woman and her baby, while Clara cradled the first infant. The shepherd trotted close beside them, her body tense, ears flicking at every sound. Step by step, they climbed back toward the road. But Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the forest wasn't empty, that whoever abandoned these children might not be finished yet, and she was right. The storm raged as the team reached their vehicles. Floodlights cut through the night, illuminating the scene like a stage. Rescuers rushed the woman and the 2 babies into heated jeeps, wrapping them in blankets, pressing hot packs against their frozen skin. The German shepherd jumped into one of the vehicles uninvited, curling tightly around the first baby as if refusing to let go. No one argued. They knew that without her, the child would have been lost. Inside the jeep, Clara sat with the unconscious woman, her mind racing. Who was she? Why were the children hidden in the snow? And most haunting of all, who was the baby in the crate? The one they couldn't save? The radio crackled. A voice from the base hospital spoke through static. "Bring them in immediately. We'll prepare the ER. And Clara, be careful. This doesn't sound like an accident." Those words stuck with her. Not an accident. As the jeeps rumbled down the icy road, Clara studied the woman's face. Thin, hollowed by hunger and exhaustion. But beneath the frost clinging to her lashes, there was something else. Pain. Secrets. The shepherd pressed against Clara's leg, eyes never leaving the baby's. It was as if she understood the gravity of everything. But here's the question that gnawed at Clara's heart. How far would a mother go to protect her children? And how much had this woman already lost? At the hospital, doctors swarmed the emergency bay, rushing the woman and the infants inside. Heat lamps, oxygen masks, IV lines. Chaos filled the room. Clara stood outside, her coat dripping with melted snow, the shepherd sitting faithfully at her side. Minutes stretched into hours. Finally, a doctor emerged, his expression grave but steady. "They're stable. The babies are weak but alive. The woman," he sighed, "she's unconscious. Severe hypothermia. She'll need time before she can speak. If she wakes." Clara exhaled in relief, but dread still clawed at her chest. "And the baby we found in the crate?" The doctor's eyes dropped. "Already gone." Silence fell heavy between them. Clara clenched her fists. "We need answers. Why were they out there?" The doctor shook his head. "That's not for me to say, but the police will want to know." And they did. Within hours, officers arrived, notebooks in hand, questions sharp. But Clara sensed the woman's story wouldn't be uncovered easily. Later that night, Clara found herself sitting in the hospital waiting room. The shepherd lay at her feet, one paw resting against her boot. She leaned down, whispering to the dog. "You know, don't you? You've seen it all." The shepherd's ears twitched, eyes fixed on the doors to the ICU where the babies slept. Just then a nurse appeared. "Clara? The woman? She's awake." Clara's heart slammed. She rose, following the nurse down the sterile hallway, the shepherd padding close behind. Inside the dim hospital room, the woman lay weakly against her pillow, her lips trembling. Her eyes fluttered open, glassy and filled with tears. When she saw the shepherd, her cracked lips parted into the faintest whisper. "You found them?" Clara leaned in. "Who? The babies?" "Yes. They're alive. You're safe now." But the woman shook her head faintly, eyes glistening. "No, not all of them. Not all of." Her words hung in the air, chilling Clara's blood. The hospital room was silent except for the beeping of machines and the faint hiss of oxygen. The woman's eyes were half open, glazed with exhaustion, but her words carried enough weight to freeze Clara where she stood. "Not all of them." Clara leaned closer, her heart pounding. "What do you mean? We found 2 babies alive. There was one more, but..." Her voice faltered, thinking of the lifeless infant in the crate. The woman's lips trembled. Tears rolled down her frost-bitten cheeks. "There were 4. The room went still. Clara's breath caught in her throat. 4. She tried to steady her voice. "You're saying there's still another child?" The woman closed her eyes, weakly nodding. "My boy, my eldest, he's out there." Clara's chest tightened. The storm had raged for days, temperatures dropping lower than most adults could endure. And yet this mother claimed another child was still in the forest. Imagine standing in that room, hearing that revelation. You've just pulled babies from the freezing snow, and now you realize the rescue isn't over. It's only half done. The German shepherd, lying beside the hospital bed, suddenly perked her ears. She stood, tail low but wagging faintly, and pressed her nose against the woman's hand. The woman gave the faintest smile. "You stayed with them. You never left," she whispered to the dog as if recognizing her. Clara crouched closer. "Listen, I need you to tell me everything. Who are you? Why were you out there?" But before the woman could respond, alarms beeped. Her chest heaved, nurses rushing in. One of them shouted, "Her oxygen's dropping." Clara was pushed back as doctors worked to stabilize her. The woman's eyes fluttered, her mouth opening as if to speak one last thing. A single whisper escaped before she slipped back into unconsciousness. "The cabin." The word echoed in Clara's mind like a bell. The pieces were coming together, but not enough to form a clear picture. What cabin, where? And was there really still another child out there waiting, or already gone? Clara stepped back into the hallway, her fists clenched. She turned to the shepherd, who stared at her with knowing eyes. "You know where, don't you?" Clara whispered. The dog barked softly as if answering. And at that moment, Clara made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't waiting for daylight. She wasn't waiting for backup. She was going back into that forest tonight. With the dog leading the way, the storm outside still raged, but Clara felt something stronger than fear. Responsibility. A pull she couldn't ignore. Somewhere out there, maybe minutes from death, another child might be waiting, and this time she swore she wouldn't come back empty-handed. The forest loomed again, dark and merciless, as Clara and 2 of her most trusted rescuers trudged back, into the snow. The German shepherd led them, her nose close to the ground, tail stiff with determination. Flashlights cut through the trees, beams flickering over twisted branches and mounds of white. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound magnified by the storm. But Clara's focus was razor-sharp. "The cabin," she muttered under her breath. The woman's last word before collapsing, the shepherd barked sharply, veering off the main trail. Clara followed without hesitation. For nearly an hour they pressed deeper into the forest, the storm biting harder. Their bodies ached, but none of them spoke of turning back. The thought of another child out there, cold and alone, drove them forward. Suddenly the shepherd stopped. She sniffed the air, then sprinted ahead. The rescuers stumbled after her until their lights revealed it. A cabin, barely visible beneath. The snow, its roof sagging, windows shattered. It looked abandoned, forgotten for years. But smoke stains marked the chimney, and fresh tracks led to the door. They had found it, the place that held the answers. But what waited inside was something none of them were ready to see. Clara motioned for silence. They approached carefully, boots crunching on the snow. The shepherd growled low in her throat, ears flattened. Clara placed her hand on the wooden door. It creaked under her touch, the hinges brittle with frost. Slowly, she pushed it open. The smell hit them first. Damp wood, mold, and something sharper. Smoke. Ash. The remains of a fire long extinguished. Inside, the cabin was a ruin. Broken furniture, rotting cloth, shards of glass glittering under. Their lights. But in the far corner, covered in blankets and straw, was a small figure. A boy, maybe 5 years old. His face dirty, eyes wide with fear, but alive. The shepherd barked once, bounding forward. The boy's face lit up in recognition, and for the first time in days he smiled. Luna. Clara's chest clenched. The dog's name. The boy clung to the shepherd's neck, burying his face in her fur. He was shaking from cold and hunger, but the light in his eyes showed something stronger. Hope. Clara crouched near him, speaking softly. "It's okay, you're safe now, we're here to help." But the boy's words stopped her cold. His voice was thin, fragile, but clear. "Don't let him come back." Clara's blood ran cold. "Who?" The boy's eyes darted to the broken window. Fear etched across his small face. His lips quivered. "The man." The rescuers exchanged uneasy looks. This wasn't just about survival anymore. There was someone else, a man, tied to this nightmare. Someone who might even now be watching them from the shadows. Clara scooped the boy into her arms, feeling the frail weight of his body. She wrapped him in her coat, whispering, "You're safe, I promise." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure. The storm outside was deafening, and the woods felt alive with unseen eyes. They had found the missing child, but they had also uncovered a darker truth. Someone had put them here deliberately, and whoever that man was, he wasn't finished. The boy's words hung in the air like ice. The man. Clara froze, her arms tightening around the frail child. His small body trembled against her chest, but it wasn't from the cold anymore. It was fear. She glanced at her team, and for the first time that night, she saw real alarm in their eyes. Rescuing children in a storm was one thing, but if there was someone out here, someone dangerous, that changed everything. The shepherd Luna growled low, her fur bristling, eyes locked on the shattered window. Her body language was clear. Danger was near. Clara spoke softly to the boy. "Sweetheart, listen to me. Who is this man?" The boy's lips trembled. He clutched Luna tighter, burying his face in her neck. Finally, he whispered, He took us. Said nobody would ever find us. Mama tried to stop him, but..." His voice cracked. "He left us here." Clara's heart thundered. A kidnapper. Not just a tragedy of nature. This was deliberate. Imagine realizing in that moment. The storm wasn't the enemy. A man was. And he could be anywhere in those woods, watching, waiting. One of her rescuers cursed under his breath. "We need to get out of here now." Clara nodded, but her instincts screamed. If they rushed, they'd expose themselves. If they hesitated, they risked the man returning. The cabin's shadows felt heavier, the silence between gusts of wind. "Too sharp." "All right," she whispered. "We move slow, quiet, lights low, stay together." The boy tugged at her coat weakly. "Don't leave, Luna." Clara gave a firm nod. "She's coming with us. Always." They wrapped the boy in another layer, shouldered their gear, and prepared to step back into the storm. But before they could, Luna barked once, sharp and urgent. She darted to the door, nose pressed against the crack. Clara froze. Then she heard it too. Footsteps, crunching snow coming closer. The rescue had suddenly become a hunt, and they weren't sure if they were the hunters or the hunted. Clara extinguished her flashlight, plunging the cabin into darkness. The rescuers followed, breaths shallow, gripping whatever they could use as defense. The boy clung to her chest, silent tears streaking his face. The door creaked. Snow blew in through the gap. as a shadow loomed in the frame. "Where are you?" a voice rasped, deep, cold. The rescuers didn't breathe. Clara held the boy tighter, her heartbeat roaring in her ears. Luna crouched low, teeth bared, a growl rumbling from her chest. The figure stepped inside, boots crunching against the cabin floor. A beam of light swept across the room, a flashlight. It passed dangerously close to Clara's face but missed, catching instead on Luna's eyes. They glowed in the beam. The man froze. For one split second, the world held still. Then Luna launched, forward barking ferociously, teeth snapping inches from his hand. The man cursed, stumbling back, the flashlight clattering to the floor. Clara didn't wait. "Run!" she shouted. The rescuers burst out into the storm, Clara clutching the boy, Luna at their side. Behind them, the man's furious shout cut through the night. "You can't take them!" But Clara didn't look back. She knew one thing. If they slowed for even a second, none of them might make it out alive. The forest swallowed them whole as they ran. The storm was relentless, snow whipping their faces, the ground sinking beneath their boots. Clara's lungs burned, her arms aching from holding the boy, but she didn't dare slow down. Behind them, shouts echoed. The man was following. "Keep moving," she cried, her voice breaking against the wind. The rescuers fanned out, flashlights flickering wildly, their beams slicing through the chaos of snow. But the storm blurred everything. Trees twisted into ghostly figures. Shadows danced where nothing stood. Luna barked sharply, staying close, her body moving like an arrow through the drifts. The boy clung to Clara, whispering through sobs. He's coming. Clara bent her head close to his ear. "Not while I'm here. Do you hear me? Not while I'm here." This wasn't just a rescue anymore. It was survival, a race between a predator and the only line of defense these children had left. A gunshot cracked through the storm. Snow exploded near Clara's feet. The rescuers ducked instinctively, adrenaline surging. One shouted, "He's armed!" "Zigzag!" Clara ordered, veering left, boots slipping. Another gunshot ripped the air, missing by inches. Luna lunged ahead, barking ferociously, trying to draw attention away from the group. The boy screamed, but Clara tightened her hold. "She knows what she's doing, trust her." The team pushed forward, desperate. And then, through the blizzard, Clara saw it. Faint beams of light in the distance. Headlights. The jeeps. "We're close," she shouted, hope flaring. But the man was closer than she thought. A dark figure emerged between the trees ahead, cutting them off. His face was half hidden by a scarf, eyes wild, flashlight in one hand, gun in the other. He aimed. Time slowed. Luna bolted. The German shepherd hurled herself at him with a growl that shook the air. The gun fired, but the shot went wide as the man fell backward into the snow, Luna's teeth sinking into his arm. "Go!" Clara screamed. The rescuers didn't hesitate. They sprinted past the struggle, Clara clutching the boy, her team shielding the babies bundled in their arms. The jeeps loomed larger, engines still warm, headlights a beacon through the blizzard. Behind them, the man screamed in rage as Luna tore at his coat. Clara slid into the jeep, thrusting the boy into the arms of another rescuer. "Hold him!" She turned back, heart-wrenching. "Luna!" The dog still fought furiously, her growls blending with the storm. But the man struck her hard, shoving her into the snow. She whimpered but staggered back to her feet. Another gunshot rang out. "No!" Clara screamed, her voice breaking. For a horrifying second, Luna disappeared in the flurry of white. Then silence. Was this the end of the brave shepherd who had protected them all? Or would she rise again, proving that loyalty runs deeper than fear? The rescuers dragged Clara into the jeep as the man's shadow vanished into the storm. Tires spun, headlights cut through the blizzard, and the convoy tore down the icy road. Inside, Clara clutched the boy's hand, her chest heaving with sobs. She whispered, over and over, as if the words themselves could bring it true. "She's still out there. She's still alive. She has to be." And though no one spoke, every rescuer knew the truth. Luna had bought them their escape, but the storm hadn't claimed her fate just yet. The jeeps tore down the frozen road, engines straining, tires sliding across patches of black ice. Inside, the rescuers clung to hope, But Clara's heart wasn't in the escape. Her mind was still. Back in the woods with Luna. The boy clutched her hand tightly, his tear-streaked face pressed into her coat. "She's gone, isn't she?" His voice was barely audible, but the weight of it cut deeper than the storm outside. Clara swallowed. Hard. She couldn't say yes, she wouldn't. "No, sweetheart. She's stronger than he knows. She's coming back to us, I promise." But even as the words left her lips, a gnawing doubt tore at her insides. Imagine leaving behind the very soul who saved your life, the one who refused to abandon you when no one else would. Could you ever forgive yourself? The rescuers exchanged glances in the dim glow of the dashboard lights. No one dared speak, but Clara could feel their guilt pressing in the silence. They had done what they had to do, just protect the children first. Yet every single one of them knew Luna had stayed behind so they could flee. Snow slammed against the windshield. The storm was worsening, visibility shrinking to mere feet. The convoy slowed, every minute stretching unbearably long. Clara pressed, her forehead against the cold glass, eyes scanning the darkness for even the faintest movement. "Please, Luna, just one sign." Then it came. A shadow flickered in the tree line. Quick, low to the ground, Clara's heart leapt. She leaned forward, breath fogging the window. "Stop!" she shouted. The driver slammed the brakes, the jeep skidding before jolting to a halt. The rescuers jerked in their seats, alarm flashing in their eyes. "What is it?" Clara pointed, her finger trembling. There, in the woods. Something moved. The headlights cut through the wall of snow, illuminating the dark trunks ahead. For a second, there was nothing, just the storm. Then, two glowing eyes. Everyone gasped. The boy shot up in his seat. "Luna!" Clara's chest cracked open with relief. She flung the door wide and stumbled into the snow, ignoring the shouts behind her. "Luna!" From the tree line, the shepherd limped forward, fur matted with blood, her body battered but unbroken. She staggered into the beams of light, ears back, tail wagging faintly. Clara dropped to her knees, tears blurring her vision. "You brave, beautiful girl." She held out her arms and Luna collapsed into them, pressing her cold nose into Clara's chest. The rescuers gathered around, their relief palpable. For a brief moment, the storm seemed to ease, their exhaustion replaced with gratitude. The boy buried his face into Luna's fur, whispering, "I knew you'd come back." But peace never lasts long in a nightmare. And just as relief flooded them, a chilling thought pierced Clara's mind. If Luna had made it back, then where was the man? She pulled back, scanning the tree line again, her gut tightening. The snow concealed everything, friend and enemy alike. And somewhere out there he was still hunting. "Get back in the jeeps," Clara ordered, her voice trembling but firm. "This isn't over." As they loaded Luna inside, one thing became clear. Their escape had just become a war. The hunter wasn't finished, and the next time he struck, he wouldn't miss. The jeeps pushed onward, headlights cutting narrow tunnels through the storm. Inside, silence reigned. Even the children seemed to sense the weight of the danger stalking them. Clara sat with Luna's head in her lap, stroking her fur gently, though every touch revealed new wounds. Deep gashes scored the shepherd's side and blood stained Clara's gloves. She whispered softly, "Stay with me, girl. You're our fighter. You don't give up." The boy, his tiny hand resting on Luna's paw, whispered too, "Don't. Leave us, please." The convoy moved slower now, every rescuer tense. They all knew the truth, that the man wasn't gone. He had followed them this far, and he wouldn't stop until he had what he wanted. Sometimes the scariest predator isn't a beast in the woods. It's the human who knows how to wait, how to strike, how to take everything from you. Suddenly, the jeep jolted violently. A loud bang echoed under the wheels. The driver cursed, fighting for control as the vehicle skidded sideways. "Flat tire," he shouted. The convoy screeched to a halt in the middle of the storm. Panic flared in the rescuers' eyes. "Out here now!" Clara's chest tightened. This wasn't chance, it couldn't be. They scrambled out into the blizzard, the icy wind cutting like knives. One rescuer dropped to his knees, examining the tire. His face paled. It's not just flat, it's slashed. Slashed. Clara's stomach plummeted. The man, he had gotten ahead of them, set a trap. "Keep the lights low," she barked, but it was too late. The headlights spilled across the snow, and there it was, a mark carved into a nearby tree. Crude, jagged lines forming a symbol no one recognized. Fresh. The rescuers stared, unease spreading like wildfire. What is that?" The boy whimpered, his voice breaking. "It's his mark." Clara knelt beside him, gripping his shoulders. "What does it mean, sweetheart?" Tears welled in his eyes. "He said it means we belong to him, that nobody can take us away." Her blood turned cold. Rage and terror twisted together inside her chest. "Not anymore," she whispered fiercely. "Not ever again." The rescuer fixing the tire froze suddenly, his head snapping toward the trees. "Did you hear that?" A faint crunch. Then another. Footsteps circling. "Lights off, now!" Clara hissed. The jeeps plunged into darkness, leaving only the storm and their ragged breaths. Silence. The kind that doesn't belong in nature. The kind that tells you you're being watched. Then, whispering. Low, guttural, carried by the wind. Words they couldn't quite make out. The boy clamped his hands over his ears, rocking back and forth. Don't listen to him." Panic surged. One rescuer raised his flashlight instinctively, flicking it on, and the beam landed on a face. The man stood just feet away, snow clinging to his coat, eyes gleaming with madness. His lips curled into a grin. Before anyone could react, he lunged. The flashlight beam burned across his face, and for the first time, Clara saw the man who had haunted their escape. His features were hard, weather-worn, like a man who belonged out of the wilderness. But his eyes were something else. Cold, hollow, and yet burning with a madness that sent shivers straight through her bones. The rescuers froze. Every muscle coiled. The storm raged around them, but in that moment it felt like the world had narrowed to just this clearing, just this man. He smiled, a chilling, crooked twist of his lips. "They were mine," he hissed. His voice was low, rasping, but it carried as though the wind itself bent to spread his words. "The little ones, all of them, mine," the boy whimpered, burying his face in Clara's coat. "Don't let him take me, please." Clara's arms tightened protectively. "Over my dead body." And maybe that was exactly what the man wanted. In one swift motion, he lunged forward, snow crunching under his boots. The rescuers moved as one man swung a heavy flashlight. Like a weapon, another pulled Clara back. Luna, despite her injuries, launched herself with a growl that cut through the storm. The man staggered, dodging, but his hand shot out, grabbing Clara's arm. His grip was iron, his nails biting through the layers of her coat. She struggled, clutching the boy tighter, refusing to let go. "Let them go!" a rescuer roared, slamming into the man's side. They tumbled into the snow, fists flying, grunts, and curses lost in the wind. The children cried, their wails mingling with the storm. Luna snapped and barked, circling the chaos, her teeth flashing. For a moment, it seemed they had the upper hand. The rescuers pinned him down, 3 against 1. Clara pulled back, clutching the boy close, her breath ragged with fear and adrenaline. But then, the man laughed. A sound so wrong, so hollow, it made Clara's stomach twist. He grinned through the blood trickling from his lip. "You think you've won? You don't know anything." With a brutal jerk, he slammed his head into one rescuer's face, sending him sprawling. Another blow to the ribs of the second rescuer, and the man was free, rising like some force of nature too wild to contain. And then, Clara saw it. The glint of metal in his hand. A knife. The rescuers scrambled back, eyes wide. The storm howled around them as if urging them to run, but there was nowhere left to go. Clara clutched the boy tighter, her heart pounding. Why are you doing this?" she shouted. The man's grin widened, his voice almost a whisper. "Because no one else would. The world doesn't care for the forgotten. I gave them purpose. I gave them me." It wasn't just cruelty. It was delusion. A twisted savior complex. The boy sobbed harder. He hurt us. He locked us away. Clara's fury ignited. You call that purpose? You're a monster. The man tilted his head, almost amused. And yet, here you are, saving them. Isn't that what monsters create? Heroes. Before she could answer, he lunged again, knife raised. Luna leapt. The shepherd collided with him mid-air, teeth sinking into his arm, dragging him down into the snow once more. He howled in pain, thrashing, trying to shake her off. Run! A rescuer shouted. Get the kids back in the jeep. Clara hesitated, torn between fight and flight. But one look at the boy's terrified eyes decided it. She turned, clutching him tightly, shouting for the others to follow. Behind her, the man's laughter echoed through the storm, mingling with Luna's furious growls. But Clara knew deep down, this was only the beginning of their fight. The convoy roared back to life, engines straining as they tore down the treacherous road once more. Clara sat in the back seat, her arms wrapped protectively around the boy, while Luna lay at their feet, blood seeping into the floor mats. Every bump in the road jolted Clara's body, but her mind was far away, replaying the man's words, his laughter, his madness. Who is he? She whispered, almost to herself. The key. Boy shifted against her chest, trembling. His voice was so soft she had to lean down to hear. He came one night, said Mama didn't deserve us anymore, said he'd take care of us, but he lied. He hurt us. He made us hide whenever people came. Clara's heart clenched. Kidnapping. Abuse. And something deeper, something ritualistic in the way he had spoken about them belonging to him. What kind of man believes he owns children? What kind of sickness twists love into possession? The rescuers in the front exchanged grim looks. One muttered, "He's not just some drifter. He knew these woods too well, too planned." Another added, "He left marks, symbols. This isn't random." Clara nodded slowly, her mind racing. This wasn't his first time. The jeep jolted, headlights flickering across the snow. In that flash, Clara saw something on the side of the road. Another mark carved into a tree, identical to the one before. Fresh. Her stomach turned. He's not chasing us blindly, he's herding us. The words silenced the jeep. The storm seemed to close in tighter, the shadows heavier, and then the boy spoke again, his tiny voice barely steady. He said, if I ever tried to run, he'd find me, no matter where I go. He said he marked me. Clara pulled back, staring into his pale face. Marked you? What do you mean? Slowly, with trembling fingers, the boy tugged at his sleeve. Beneath it, burned into his skin, was a scar, crude lines forming the same symbol carved into the trees. Clara's breath caught. Her hands shook as she touched the mark gently, fury and sorrow colliding inside her. The rescuers swore under their breath. This is bigger than we thought. The boy's tears welled again. Will it ever go away? Clara cupped his face firmly, locking eyes with him. Listen to me. That mark doesn't own you. He doesn't own you. You're free now, do you hear me? Free. The boy nodded weakly, though fear still clouded his eyes. Luna whined softly, resting her head against the boy's lap, as if to seal Clara's promise. But deep down, Clara knew the truth. The man wasn't finished. He had marked this child as his, and men like him didn't let go easily. Suddenly, the radio in the jeep crackled with static. The rescuers exchanged wary glances, before a voice, warped, broken, but unmistakably his, hissed through. You can't run. You can't hide. He is mine. The jeep went dead silent. The boy clamped his hands over his ears, screaming. Clara's chest heaved, rage boiling. She grabbed the radio, her voice like steel. You listen to me. He is not yours. Not now. Not ever. But only a low chuckle answered. Then the static died. The jeeps pushed through the night, their engines straining, but no one inside felt safe. The snowstorm screamed like a living thing, pressing down on the convoy as if trying to bury them alive. Clara held the boy tightly, her ears still ringing with the man's voice from the radio. You can't run. You can't hide. He is mine. Those words weren't just a threat. They were a promise. The boy trembled against her, eyes wide, lips quivering. He always finds me. Always. Clara bent her head down, forcing her voice steady. Not this time. You're not alone anymore. He has to get through me, and he never will. Luna lifted her head from the boy's lap, a low growl vibrating in her chest. Her wounds still seeped blood, but her spirit burned stronger than ever. She hadn't given up, and neither would they. But how do you fight a predator who turns the entire forest into his weapon? The rescuers in the front seat whispered among themselves. That radio, how the hell did he tap into our frequency? He knows the mountains, another muttered. He's been here longer than any of us. He could have set up repeaters. Hidden equipment. Hell, maybe he's been tracking us since the start. The realization chilled Clara. This wasn't random. This wasn't chance. The man had been planning this, not for hours but for years. Suddenly the headlights caught something ahead. Another tree, the bark carved with the jagged symbol. Only this time the mark wasn't alone. It was surrounded by dozens of smaller, scratches, circles, crosses, patterns that seemed almost ritualistic. The rescuers slowed. A hush fell over the jeep. Clara stared at the carvings, her gut tightening. What is this? The boy's voice cracked. He said it's his forest, his kingdom. He marks everything that's his. And if you walk into it, his voice trailed off into a sob. Clara whispered, more to herself than anyone else. We're not in the forest anymore, we're in his trap. A sharp crack echoed through the storm. Not thunder, not ice. A gunshot. The rescuers ducked, headlights flickering wildly. Snow sprayed as a bullet punched into the hood of the jeep. He's out there, someone shouted. Panic surged, but Clara's instincts sharpened. She pulled the boy close, her eyes scanning the tree line. No, he's not just out there, he's everywhere. More shots followed, but they weren't aimed to kill. Not yet. They pinged off the jeeps, bit into the ground near their wheels. Herding shots. The driver swore. Gunning the engine. He's pushing us somewhere. Clara's stomach dropped. That was exactly it. The symbols, the carvings, the slashed tire. The hunter wasn't just chasing them, he was guiding them. Stop the jeep! Clara shouted suddenly. The driver's eyes widened. Are you insane? If we keep driving where he wants us, we're finished, she snapped. He wants us to follow the road, that's why he's shooting. Stop now. The convoy screeched to a halt, engines idling, headlights dimmed. Silence pressed heavy, broken only by the howling wind. And then, a voice, not over the radio this time, from the trees. You're clever, girl. Every rescuer froze, their breath visible in the cold air. The man's silhouette shifted in the darkness just beyond the tree line, his knife glinting faintly. His voice carried calm, calculated menace. But clever doesn't save you. There. Mine, always mine. Clara's rage boiled. She stepped out of the jeep, snow crunching beneath her boots. Not anymore. The boy screamed, No, don't go! But Clara stood tall, her hands shaking but her voice steady. You want me? Here I am. Leave the children alone. The man chuckled darkly. Brave. But you don't understand. This isn't about you, it never was. The storm whipped between them, two figures staring across the snowy void. And then the man raised his hand, revealing something glinting in his palm. Not just a knife, a locket. Small, familiar. Clara's breath caught. She knew that locket. But how? The locket dangled in the man's hand, catching the faint beams of the jeep's headlights. He held it with a reverence that made Clara's blood run cold. You recognize this, don't you? His voice dripped with twisted satisfaction. Of course you do. Clara's throat tightened. She did recognize it. She had seen it once before, years ago, in a case file that still haunted her. A missing mother never found. Only her locket had been discovered, abandoned in the woods. Her voice shook. Where did you get that? The man grinned. She gave it to me. Willingly. No, Clara whispered, horror flooding her veins. What if this wasn't just about the children? What if this man had been stealing lives piece by piece for years? The boy whimpered, clutching her coat. He's lying. He lies about everything. But Clara's gut told her otherwise. This wasn't just a lie. This was a breadcrumb. The rescuers braced, weapons raised, knives, flashlights, anything they had, but none of them moved. It wasn't just fear holding them back. It was the weight of revelation. The man stepped closer, his boots crunching, softly in the snow. She begged me to take care of them, and I did. I gave them more than the world ever would. I gave them my name, my mark. The boy screamed, "No! You hurt her!" The man's smile faltered, rage flashing in his eyes. She didn't understand. They never do, but they learn. Oh, they always learn. Clara's fists clenched. Her voice shook, but her fury blazed. You're sick, twisting care into control. Love into possession. You don't protect children and you destroy them. The man tilted his head, almost curious. Do I? Or do I show them the truth? That the world doesn't care? That people like you will always abandon them in the end? Luna barked suddenly, snapping the tension, her growl vibrating through the night. She staggered forward, despite her wounds, placing herself between Clara and the man. The man's eyes flicked down to the shepherd, and for the first time, his expression shifted. Not fear, recognition. You again, he murmured. Always in my way. Clara's breath caught. You've seen her before? His grin returned. Oh yes, she was with them when I first came. She tried to stop me then too. Dogs are loyal, but they break eventually. Rage surged through Clara. Not her, never her. The boy's sobbing cut through the storm. Why me? Why won't you leave me alone? The man's eyes locked onto him, burning with obsession. Because you are mine. You are the one. Marked. Chosen. Clara pulled the boy closer. Her voice fierce. He's not yours. He never was. You don't get to decide who these children belong to. The man's smile widened again, but his tone dropped to a whisper, sharp as a blade. You don't understand. It's not me who chose. It's the mark. And once the mark is given, it never leaves. The boy shook violently, tears streaming down his face. Clara felt her rage harden into something sharper. Resolve. She stepped forward, her voice steady, cutting through the storm. Then we'll burn every mark, every tree, every scar, and when nothing's left of your lies, they'll be free. The man's grin twisted into fury, his voice rising into a roar. You think you can erase me? You think you can fight what I've built? Then try. With a guttural scream, he lunged forward, knife flashing in the stormlight. The knife gleamed as the hunter lunged, the storm swirling around him like a cloak of rage. Clara shoved the boy back into the arms of a rescuer and met the man head-on, the snow crunching under her boots as she braced herself. Stay with him, she shouted over her shoulder. The boy cried out, No, he'll kill you! But Clara didn't waver. She had been hunted all night, chased through terror and shadows. Now it was time to turn and face the predator. This was no longer about survival. It was about ending the nightmare once and for all. The hunter's knife slashed through the air, inches from her face. Clara ducked low, snow spraying up as she twisted to the side. Her heart pounded, but her focus was razor sharp. Every scream of the wind, every crunch of his boots, every flicker of the knife, she tracked it all. You can't win, the man snarled. You're in my world. Clara's jaw clenched. Then let's burn your world down. He lunged. Again, and this time Clara grabbed a thick branch buried in the snow, swinging it with every ounce of strength. The wood cracked against his arm, the knife clattering to the ground. The rescuers shouted, surging forward, but the man was fast, impossibly fast. He tackled Clara into the snow, pinning her down, his breath hot and rancid against her face. I'll carve the truth into you, he hissed. Luna's snarl split the storm. She leapt, teeth sinking into his shoulder. The man roared, twisting violently, but the shepherd held on, blood staining her muzzle. The rescuers joined in, trying to drag him off, but he fought like an animal, throwing one man aside like a rag. Dull. For a moment, Clara saw his eyes up close, not wild but sharp, calculating. This wasn't madness, it was belief. He truly thought the children were his. She gritted her teeth, shoving him back with all her strength. You're not a savior, you're a monster. The man staggered, clutching his bleeding shoulder, his grin twisted into something feral. Monsters are just the ones who stop pretending, and when the world forgets these children, they'll... Remember me, the boy screamed from behind the rescuers. You're nothing. You're nothing to me. The words hit the man like a blow, his face twisted with rage. "Lies, you can't lie to me." He lunged for the boy, his knife reclaimed, his movements fueled by fury. Clara sprinted, her lungs burning, her voice ripping through the storm. "No!" Time slowed. The hunter's blade arced toward the boy. Luna, bloodied but unbroken, hurled herself in between. The knife sank into her side. The shepherd yelped, collapsing into the snow. "Luna!" Clara screamed. The boy fell to his knees beside the dog, sobbing. "No, no, don't leave me." The hunter stood over them, panting, his knife dripping. His grin returned, wider, darker. "It always ends this way," he whispered. Clara grabbed the hunter's wrist before he could strike again. And in the struggle, the locket around his neck snapped free, spilling open. What Clara saw inside made her freeze in shock. The storm seemed to vanish as Clara's gaze locked on the open locket. Inside was a small, faded photograph, a woman holding a baby, smiling faintly despite the weariness in her eyes. Clara's blood turned to ice. She knew that face. It wasn't just some stranger's mother, it was her mother. The hunter wasn't just chasing children at random. This nightmare had been tied to Clara all along. Her grip faltered in shock, and the man wrenched, his wrist free, shoving her back. His grin widened as he saw her reaction. "Ah, so you see it now, you understand?" "No," Clara whispered, shaking her head. "That's not possible." The man's voice was almost tender, like a teacher praising a student. "It is. She gave me everything. She gave me you. You were the first, the beginning." The boy's sobs echoed behind her, Luna's shallow breaths fading into the snow. Clara's mind spun, her chest constricting. Could it be true? Had she known this man? "Liar," Clara spat, though her voice trembled. "You twist everything." "Do I?" he countered softly. "Then why do you recognize her face? Why did you feel the truth in your bones the moment you saw it?" Clara's heart wrenched. She had always carried questions about her past, holes in her childhood she could never fill. Was this man exploiting them? Or had the storm dragged up a truth she was never meant to know? The boy grabbed her sleeve, his tear-streaked face desperate. "Don't listen to him, please. He says the same lies to all of us, that we belong to him, that our mothers gave us away. It's not true." Clara looked down at the boy, this trembling child who had survived horrors no child should face. His voice cut through the fog in her mind like a blade of clarity. She turned back to the man, fury blazing in her eyes. "You're right about one thing. I do see it now, not the truth, the sickness." The hunter's grin faltered. "You collect pain. You wear it like trophies. You twist memories until they break. But you didn't save us. We survived in spite of you," the man roared, charging with the knife. Clara caught his arm mid-strike, her muscles screaming. They crashed into the snow, struggling for control. His face loomed inches from hers, his spit hot with every word. "You can't erase me. I am the mark, I am the shadow in your blood." Clara's teeth clenched. "No, you're nothing but a coward hiding behind scars." With a surge of strength, she twisted his wrist. The knife flipped from his hand, spinning into the snow. The rescuers moved in, finally gaining the upper hand. Two men pinned the hunter's arms. Another forced him down by the neck. He thrashed, howling, but this time he was trapped. Clara stood over him, chest heaving, her voice shaking with fury. "You don't get to mark anyone ever again." The boy rushed to Luna, stroking her fur. "Please, don't go," he whispered, tears falling into the snow. The dog's eyes flickered weakly, her chest rising shallowly. Clara knelt beside them, her hands trembling. "Stay with us, Luna. Please. We need you." The hunter laughed, even pinned to the ground, blood dripping from his shoulder. "She'll die like the rest, and when she does, you'll remember me forever." Clara's rage ignited. She turned to the rescuers. "Tie him. Gag him. Do not let him speak another word." As they bound the hunter, the storm suddenly broke, revealing in the distance a cluster of flickering lights. A village, salvation. But Clara's eyes widened, because carved into the trees around the village were dozens of fresh symbols. The hunter wasn't working alone. The rescuers dragged the bound hunter through the snow, his muffled laughter chilling everyone to the bone. The gag silenced his words, but his eyes still burned with manic triumph, as if he knew something they didn't. Clara kept close to the boy, her hand gripping his tightly. Behind them, Luna stumbled, her breathing shallow. The rescuers had tried to press cloth against her wound, but blood still seeped, staining the snow a deep crimson. The storm parted slowly, like a curtain being pulled aside. And then Clara saw them, faint, flickering lights in the distance. Lanterns, a village. Her chest tightened with hope. Finally, shelter, safety. But as they drew closer, that hope curdled into dread. Every tree lining the outskirts of the village bore the mark. Freshly carved, deep and jagged, not one or two, dozens. The entire forest edge was scarred. The boy froze, clutching her arm. No, it's everywhere. The rescuers exchanged fearful glances. One muttered, "How could one man carve all this?" "He was with us." Clara's stomach dropped. "He's not alone." The bound hunter chuckled through his gag, eyes glittering. He leaned into the snow, pressing his cheek against one of the carved trees, like a worshipper bowing before an altar. Fear rippled through the group. They reached the village gates, crude wooden posts reinforced with barbed wire. Lanterns burned low, casting long, shaky shadows, but the streets were empty. No voices, no footsteps, just silence. "Hello?" one rescuer called. No answer. They moved deeper. The houses looked lived in, doors ajar, smoke still curling faintly from chimneys. Plates sat abandoned on tables, chairs tipped over. It was as though the entire village had vanished in an instant, and then the boy whispered, "They took them." Clara turned sharply. "What do you mean?" His lip quivered. "That's what he does. When the mark spread, it means he's growing. More people, more children, they're his now." Her heart pounded, her throat tightening. This wasn't a sanctuary. It was a graveyard of the living. One rescuer checked a house, then another. Empty, all of them, every last one. The hunter thrashed suddenly, muffled shouts vibrating against the gag. His eyes blazed, wild with triumph. Clara stepped closer, her voice trembling with fury. "You didn't just steal children, you stole entire lives." The man stilled, then smiled against the gag. The boy pressed his face into Clara's side. "He won't stop, even if you take him away, even if you kill him. There are more." The storm roared again outside the village, rattling the lanterns. Clara's chest heaved. She felt the crushing weight of what this truly was. Not just one predator, but a network of shadows. And yet, as she looked at the boy's trembling face, at Luna bleeding in the snow but still refusing to leave his side, something fierce lit inside her. "No," she whispered. "It ends here. With us." She turned to the rescuers, her voice steady. "We're not just surviving anymore. We're taking back every mark, every child, every memory he's stolen." The boy's eyes widened, searching her face. For the first time that night, a flicker of hope returned. Outside the village, torches flared in the distance. Shadows moved. Between the trees are dozens of them, and a low chant carried on the wind. The torches bobbed closer, casting a fiery glow across the snow. Figures emerged from the tree line, cloaked, hooded, their faces hidden in shadow. Each carried a torch. Each bore the same carved mark painted in ash across their skin. The rescuers tensed, clutching weapons. The boy pressed himself against Clara, his whole body shaking. Luna forced herself to stand despite her wound, planting her paws firmly in the snow, a growl rumbling in her throat. The bound hunter writhed violently, trying to scream through the gag. His eyes burned triumphant, and then the chanting grew louder. Not chaotic, not frenzied, quite organized, ritualistic. The villagers stopped just beyond the gate, torches raised. One figure stepped forward, lowering their hood. An old woman, her eyes hollow, her lips cracked but her voice strong. "He is ours. You cannot take him." Clara's blood froze. "You're protecting him?" The woman's gaze was empty. "He showed us the truth. The world abandons its children. He does not. We belong to him." "No." Clara shook her head. "You belong. To fear, to lies. He doesn't protect children, he chains them. The woman's lips curved into something between a smile and a grimace. Chains are better than forgetting, the boy cried out, his voice breaking. I'm not yours, I'm not his, I belong to me. The hooded figures stirred, some faltering, others clutching their torches tighter. Clara felt it, the crack in their faith. The boy's voice, small but fierce, carried a truth they had long buried. She stepped forward, her voice ringing through the village. Look at him. Look at what he's done. Is this protection? Is this care? A bleeding child, a dying dog, lives stolen and hollowed out. Her voice wavered, but her fire grew stronger. You're not saving anyone by serving him. You're letting him erase you. And I won't let that happen again. Not to me, not to him, not to any of you. The villagers shifted, uncertainty spreading like cracks in glass. The hunter thrashed harder, muffled screams bursting through the gag. His control was slipping. The old woman's hand trembled on her torch, her lips pressed tight. And then, slowly, she lowered it. One by one, others followed. Torches dipped, voices faltered. The chant died. Clara's breath caught. The spell was breaking. The boy whispered, tears streaming down his face. It's over. But then, the hunter erupted with inhuman strength, breaking free of his captors, surging to his feet. His gag tore loose as he roared, "No, they are mine!" He lunged for the boy one last time. And Luna, bleeding, broken but unyielding, threw herself at him with the last of her strength. Her body collided with his, knocking him off balance. Together, they tumbled into the snow, the knife clattering. Away. The rescuers swarmed him, forcing him down, binding him tighter than before. His screams filled the night, but this time, no one listened. Clara dropped to her knees beside Luna, her hands shaking as she stroked the shepherd's fur. You saved him. You saved us all. The boy clung to Luna, sobbing into her neck. Don't leave me, please. You're my family. Luna's eyes flickered open, her tail thumping weakly against the snow. Clara's chest tightened. She's still here. She's still fighting. The villagers, freed from the hunter's grip, dropped their torches into the snow. Some wept. Some simply stared, hollow but waking. Clara rose, her arms wrapped around the boy. She turned to the rescuers, her voice steady. We carry them out of here, every survivor, every scar. We burn these marks down and never let them rise again. For the first time, the boy smiled through his tears. We're free? Clara hugged him tighter. Yes, we're free. But as the dawn broke over the mountains, Clara knew the truth. Shadows never vanish completely. But as long as they stood together, as long as children like him had voices, they would never be silenced again. The story of Clara, the boy, and Luna isn't just about survival. It's about fighting back when darkness tries to claim innocence. It's about standing up for the ones who cannot stand alone. And it's about love, the kind that sacrifices everything, even in the face of monsters. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share it with someone who needs hope today. And I want to hear from you. What part of this story hit you the hardest? Luna's sacrifice, the boy's bravery, or Clara's unbreakable spirit? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be reading every single one.